Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
I welcome you in the 7th lecture of Technology Transfer through Strategic Alliance and Joint Venture. And in the last lecture, I have started talking with you regarding the joint venture, and I am going to continue with that topic. And now I will specifically concentrate my talks on types of joint venture. Now, in generally, there are two types of joint venture which is popularly used in Indian market. The first type of joint venture is known as joint venture with equity participation, and the another type of the joint venture is known as without equity participation. So, let me explain these two concepts, what is the equity participation and what is the joint venture without equity participation. Now, in the last lecture I have said that one of the important criteria to understand that particular agreement led to the joint venture or not is there should be some kind of sharing of control and some kind of sharing of liability, and that is what Supreme Court held in a case which I have mentioned in my last lecture. So, when we are talking about equity participation, we basically talk about the control which both the partner will have into a joint venture entity or the business organization which it forms as a part of the joint venture. Now, when we are talking about the equity participation, we are not really confine ourselves in only the capital instrument, but it can be even kind of a hybrid instrument too, wherein you try to have a control over the management of the new entity which is coming out of the joint venture agreement. So, in case of equity participation, your partner not only bring the technology or the know-how, but at the same time they also make an investment into the new entity. Now, if you do have the control over the new entity through your investment, then you have a greater access over the market which you wanted to penetrate in a different territory. So, the foreign partner always want that there should be some kind of a control in the new business entity which is coming out of this joint venture agreement. Now, in joint venture with the equity participation, it can be it might require to have some kind of more clarity into this understanding, and we can divide this joint venture with the equity participation into a three broad heading. First one is formation formalities, second one is financing facility, and the third one is management control. Now, let me explain to you the formation formalities. Now, if you remember in the last lecture, I was talking with you joint venture option, and therein I said that the outcome of a joint venture agreement may lead to formation of association of person, may lead to formation of a partnership, and may lead to formation of the company. Now, whatever the form it takes, you need to have a formalities to be complied with. Like I have said, some of these business organization or the business form joint venture takes is governed by a particular organization law. Like if we talk about association of the person, many of the time you will find it governed by the Societies Act or the Cooperatives Act of a particular state as well as the federal laws. Now, if it is a partnership, then again it will be governed by the Partnership Act, and if it is a limited liability partnership, then it will be governed by Limited Liability Partnership Act, and if it is a company, then again it will be governed by the Companies Act. So, all these particular act basically provide some kind of a formality requirement. That means, before you incorporate any of these particular business form, you need to go through the series of steps which you need to comply, because the law mandate that. So, the formalities requirement is one of the important issue in case of the joint venture agreement relating to formation of an organization. The second issue is there might be some kind of a sectoral mandate, or maybe the business segment which you wanted to enter, there is a mandate by the regulator that if you want to incorporate a business, it should be of a specific form or specific business organization. Like sometimes the law prescribe that it should be only a company, and it should be only a private limited company or a public limited company. And furthermore, it also specified that what should be the capital requirement for these particular companies. It might also specify that what kind of a human expertization requirement for that type of company. So, if you want to enter the business in that particular sector, in that particular segment, then in that case you need to comply that. Apart from that, you might require to take a permission from the environmental regulators. Whatever you are going to produce, that might affect the local environment, or it might potentially affect the local environment. And if that is so, then in that case you need to go for a regulatory permission from the environmental regulator of that particular place. And sometimes you will find this regulatory compliance requirement is more complex, or getting the permission is more complex based on type of industry you wanted to enter. The next one might be the permission which you need to take from the fair market regulator, popularly which we called it as a Competition Commission of India. Like if you are entering into a joint venture with the existing player in the market, and the moment you are entering into a joint venture, the concentration of the existing player in the market increases. And if that is so, then in that case you need to go back to this fair market regulator, and you need to seek the permission that can you enter into that particular market, because the fair market regulator will try to understand, are you going to polarize the market after this particular joint venture agreement. So, what I am trying to drawing your attention, that there is a multiple regulatory requirement which you might need to comply if you wanted to incorporate a formal business organization. So, formation formalities is one of the issues which you should be careful in while you are going for equity participation. I am going to detail more on the choice of law in the in subsequent lecture of mine, and there I am going to talk with you that which kind of law you are going to choose, or is there any flexibility to choose a law in a transaction which is in a cross boundary scenario. Now, let me come into the financing facility. Now, again this financing facility is highly regulated. If you are entering into a particular sector, and if you are entering a joint venture with a foreign partner, and you are again going for a technology transfer, then there is a several financial compliance you need to make. First of all, you need to check that are you allowed to make an investment into a particular segment. So, you need to look into foreign direct investment regulation, or you need to look into the RBI guideline, or you may need to look into FIPB guideline, or you may be look into the government's guideline relating to particular sector or a particular sector and the cap which government has suggested for that particular sector. Second, you have to look into is there any restriction has been imposed by the capital market regulator for accessing a particular market. That means, if you wanted to bring kind of a FDI and then you want to list that particular company into a stock exchange, do the security market regulator prescribe any particular type of regulation which you need to comply? Now, sometimes even you will find a sectoral regulator which is operating in a particular area prescribe a type of finance which you can seek for from your foreign partner while you are doing the technology transfer. Now, when I am talking about the type of capital, it might be the equity capital, it might be the debt, it might be even convertible debentures, or if I go more specific, then even it might prescribe that what classes of equity you can take. It can also prescribe that you can take only the shares which do not have a voting right. They can also prescribe that you can take a convertible debenture, but it should be of a particular duration. So, what I am trying to drawing your attention, even relating to financing facility, you might have a lot of restriction. Even it might also tell you that which are the financial institution you can access for raising the further capital for your business venture. Similarly, if you come into the next point, that is the management and control, many of the time even the sectoral regulator prescribe that what should be the management structure and what should be the control of your foreign partner. Like you might be aware of the fact that in the last aviation deal with JET and IIT, JET has allowed to finance by IIT up to 49%. So, actually IIT is not given a ultimate control over this particular acquisition or the capital infusion, though in true sense this was not a joint venture, because it was not created a new business organization, but in a loose term you can say it is a joint venture, because in case of the joint venture it is not always necessary that you have to have a new business organization. But when we are talking about equity participation, we are basically try to talk about some kind of a control over this particular organization itself. So, even some point of time the government policy might prescribe that what kind of management control you should have into your venture venture where both the parties are coming together. Now, in my lecture, whenever I am talking about joint venture or strategic alliance in my last lectures, my specific focus was more on technology transfer issues. The joint venture or strategic alliance is possible beyond the technology transfer. So, you should not be confused that whatever I am telling, this is not applicable in the ordinary condition, or whatever otherwise I am telling, it is not applicable in case of the technology transfer scenario. You need to understand the broader perspective in some cases, and in some cases you need to understand in a very specific perspective. So, management and control is one of the important issue in case of equity participation. And if it is a PSUs who are going for a joint venture, then this management and control became a very important issue. Like if it is 50-50 partnership, then possibly neither of these people have any majority control over that joint venture. So, PSU generally do not prefer that their partner will have same kind of control as they have on that particular company. Now, if it is a 51-49% joint venture, then maybe the person who is having a 51% holding, he will have a greater control over that particular joint venture company, because it is in a majority. I am going to discuss about this particular model in my subsequent lecture, but nevertheless what I am trying to drawing your attention that there is a different types of models are available relating to the management control. And sometimes even the PSUs do not want that there should be 51% investment by them in the joint venture, because the moment they do that, it is become a government company. And once it is a government company, it is subjected to several restrictions. So, in case of management and control, you need to have a lot of strategy. You need to look into what are the sectoral law prevalent in that particular area where you wanted to do the business. Is there any specific law which has been prescribed by the government relating to the foreign direct investment, relating to management and control? Is there any specific policy government is prescribing for a particular segment because the government wanted to promote that particular segment? So, one has to be careful in terms in this particular manner. Now, let me come into the next issues, which is known as joint venture without equity participation. Now, as I told you, in case of the equity participation, the end result is formal business organization. But in case of the joint venture without equity participation, there is a no incorporation of business organization as a result of the joint venture. So, it is more like a business relation, where both the party mutually decide that how they are going to operate in the given frame of the agreement, joint venture agreement. And this particular relationship may be relating to the sharing of the market, relating to sharing of information relating to market and understanding of the market. It might be relating to even sharing of the technology. It might be relating to the sharing of a particular supply chain which the local partner use it. There can be several examples of this kind of a business relationship. Like sometimes you will find the foreign company, car company want to penetrate in Indian market, and immediately they do not establish the service or post sale service network. So, what they do in that particular circumstance, they try to create kind of a relationship with the existing big player into that particular market, and then they try to give the service to their customer, post sale service. Good example might be the Fiat and Tata. Tata was giving the service of the Fiat cars in the postal service, because Tata has a huge network, service network, and Fiat thought, instead of creating or duplicating this particular facility, let us use this particular service from the Tata themselves. Similarly, you will find this kind of business relation in telecommunication sector. Like few years back, you might heard about the Virgin Telecom. Virgin Telecom actually launched by Tata Telecommunication, and what they did, they have actually shared the spectrum as well as airtime. So, the Virgin Mobiles never created any infrastructure for operation in India. So, you will find there is a many such kind of example relating to the business relation. Now, next type might be executing a particular business undertaking. It might show that you wanted to bring some kind of a product into a market and try to promote that particular product in a market, or try to customize that with the help of existing player into the market. And you will find there is a lot of example into the print media relating to that. Like you might heard about this magazine called Reader Digest. In India, Reader Digest started operating with a particular local group, which is very prominent into the print media and with the tablets, because they wanted to bring this customization according to the Indian taste of readers, at the same time to make that particular book very popular or the tablets very popular within the Indian readership. You will also find this kind of understanding relating to telecommunication, different channels which are the foreign companies, and they are telecasting their product in Indian market through this particular process. So, actually this is not leading to and they are doing it in the existing platform of their partner in India. So, in this particular kind of joint venture, they basically do not incorporate any new business organization. And lastly, there can be another way to do things. It is known as inter-firm cooperative agreement. Now, through this particular cooperative agreement also, people can carry out the joint venture for both of their benefit. Now, it can be sharing of the internal resources, it can be sharing of the knowledge which they have about a particular market, it can be sharing of the process, it can be facilitating each other relating to accessing the regulatory barrier, and sometimes people do take a very strategic decision not to form a new company, because there might be a regulatory barrier for having a formal organization, or even if it is allowed to create a formal organization, and people, if the people do incorporate a formal organization, the entry cost is very high. So, in those circumstances, people generally go for this kind of informal relationship, which we generally call it as a without equity participation. but there is a risk in this kind of relationship. The risk is you might not have any hierarchical control or ex post governance mechanism, but it does not mean that there is there is a no executions of successful venture through this particular means, through this particular process. So, what my advice is, if you are going for a non equity or without equity participation joint venture, then in the joint venture agreement itself you clarify this particular process, or you create a mechanism how to control or how to participate into decision making, or how to carry forward this kind of informal understanding. Now, I will take you in the last point of this lecture. This is cross boundary joint venture, and again you will find we categorize this transnational or the international joint venture into two broad category. One is a inbound joint venture, another is a outbound joint venture. Now, when we said when we talk about the inbound joint venture, it basically a company who is coming in and enter into a joint venture in a domestic market. And when we are talking about the outbound joint venture, it means a domestic company going out in another market and entering into a joint venture. Now, process of inbound and outbound joint venture are almost same. You need to go through same kind of agreement structuring and arrangement. You need to do all the compliances which is required otherwise for the joint venture. But what further you need to give the attention is that what are the foreign policy relating to the investment. Is there any bilateral treaty relating to the business between this country where the inbound or outbound joint venture is happening, or is that country where you wanted to go, or the company which is want to come here are under the any international understanding. So, in addition to all joint venture compliances, you are required to understand these international regulations, international treaties or understanding between the countries while you are going for this inbound or outbound joint venture. Thank you.